Ted Gunderson, man, that guy, I'd hear him say this stuff 25, 30 years ago. I thought he was nuts, except I kept researching it and finding it was true. A little short clip, resurfaced on Twitter, where he lays out every damn thing that was going to go down. So, former FBI agent, head of the Los Angeles sector, Ted Gunderson, says the Bilderberg, this is in 1996, and New World Order Illuminati is behind all of the heinous crimes against humanity. Here's the clip.
I personally investigated the Oklahoma City bombing case. Huge cover-up. Jack Kennedy's assassination, huge cover-up. Bobby Kennedy's assassination, huge cover-up. World Trade Center, huge cover-up. Okay, terrorism. They're using it as an excuse to take away our constitutional rights and our civil liberties. The Illuminati, Bilderberg, New World Order, globalists are the element behind this. It dovetails into the satanic movement, and this movement has infiltrated into our intelligence community, the once great FBI and the CIA.
Then 3 years ago, they released the Finder's Case emails. The FBI released thousands of pages, and everything he told me about that was true. It's like a cult, CIA devil worshippers. And it was like, yeah, they've got these cults, but they all feed into this larger CIA group, and they brand the women on their bellies and all, and that was NXIVM. And then they've got these islands where they get these politicians and scientists and people to compromise them, and it's all run by MI6, CIA, and Mossad, and they fly them out to these islands. And he goes, and they're not just having sex with kids. He goes, but we want you to pledge yourself to Lucifer. And Mark said, well, I'm a Christian. He goes, well, we know you say you are, but let's just get this out of the way. And he says, is this a joke? And they said, no, I'm deadly serious with you. This happened to Mark Dice, who's, been friends with forever. Now, that's just one guy that will go public. I got told that.
During a live last night, some random account started dropping bombshells in the comments about the technology. Apparently, he was some ITT person from the government previously for years and years. I'll post screenshots for you. He switched accounts and went on an account with enough followers to go live with us. And, when we thought that we understood the technology and what was happening, he took it to levels I couldn't even wrap my mind around, and it was disconcerting. It was really upsetting. There's a few of you I really wish had been there last night, so I hope that Keith downloads that live and posts clips of what he was saying, because it was crazy. No weapons formed against us shall prosper in Jesus' mighty name.
Hi, you guys. This is Renata. BRYAN TEW'S joined us this past Sunday, and he touched on why he believes children are being targeted and other nanotechnology and mind control things that may be of interest to those of you who are targeted individuals. So here it is. It's a little choppy because his Bluetooth kept dropping. So in the end, he just kind of abruptly drops off because of his Bluetooth. But I tried to capture as much as I could because I thought it would be helpful. So here it goes.
Okay, so I already introduced you, and if you want to add anything to your introduction, that would be fine. And but I definitely would like you to speak on why children, in particular, are chosen to be targeted individuals, and like how could someone do this torturous thing to a child, and why you think that is happening to children, and then you can go wherever you want after that. Go ahead, please.
Okay, so basically what they're doing, okay, people are targeted in all age groups. It's not just children, okay, but they target children generally from 3 to 6 years of age in order to introduce trauma. They're using physical and psychological trauma to fragment, to fracture the core personality of the child to what are called alter personalities. Those alter personalities are then located with psychological probing techniques, and then they're reprogrammed through dream modulation, neurolinguistic programming, etc., etc. Okay, so the objective then is to get to the child early enough. So they want to get to the child early so that later in life or in a perpetual pattern, they can fragment that child's personality, break it apart, okay, break it into pieces, and then create alter persona. You understand?
Yep. Go ahead, I'm listening.
So it's not just, children, obviously, they're targeting all age groups. But I heard people, as we were talking earlier, tonight, there was terrible sound quality. I'm sorry for that. But the family members of the targeted individual are often targeted. It's very dangerous for a targeted individual's family members because they have what are called primary, secondary, and tertiary targets. And what they do is, if they think that a person, a friend or family member cannot be turned against you, then they must make sure the person is plugged into the paradigm by some of the means. Often that's by access to the technology itself. So they'll make the family member, the child, for example, a trauma-based mind control victim, so that the victim, the primary target, let's say, for example, that's you, okay? They'll target your children so that you, the primary target, cannot engage in a pattern of random or chaotic conversations and situations. Random and chaotic conversational and situational scenarios disrupt their technology. It prevents them from being able to verify the responses of the victim are consistent. They have to stop that, okay? Every response of the trauma-based mind control victim must be verified. Okay, they run the victim each day, hundreds of times a day sometimes, through what's called a verification routine. You just witnessed a verification routine. Okay, the process of forcing me into repeated responses over and over and over again. One response is not enough. They must establish a number of responses, multiple responses, until the supercomputer can download all those responses, correlate. Key word now, correlate those responses into what are called response statistics, and then from that statistical data, a coherent pattern of thought is then developed. So it wasn't possible for them to just force me to call one time. They needed to repeatedly force me into chaos and trauma, into these repeated synaptic responses until the supercomputer could generate a coherent pattern of thought by taking all of those responses and correlating them into response statistics. Well, that's what it's doing with friends and family members and children. They cannot allow you to sit there and engage in a pattern of conversations and situations they cannot verify. It disrupts their technology. That's why your children are targeted. And oftentimes, family members and friends are targeted without their knowledge. They have no idea they're even targeted. Can you hear me, Renata?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead. I have everybody on mute, so they're listening.
So the targeted individuals, family members, and friends will be targeted without their knowledge because the technology, mind control technologies of the CIA and the Department of Defense are designed to mimic the normal cognitive behavior of their victims. So the majority of people who are targeted have no idea they're even targeted, unless, of course, there's some trauma induced where they can see a pattern that something is wrong, and they can begin to determine, they may not understand the technology or the tactics, but they know they're targeted. So because they have no idea they're even targeted, they use tactics against the victim, such as they'll use non-consensual programming tactics, they'll use negative associative conditioning, they'll use influence mapping, et cetera, okay? What they're doing is, it's not simply about creating a hostile environment. They know they must do that, okay? They're using, like I said, they're using physical and psychological trauma to map out and reverse engineer the sensory and neural pathways of the victim's brain and central nervous system. The supercomputer that your brain is remotely tied to for life, 24/7, okay, is downloading all of your responses in real time at speed of light. Energy travels at speed of light. So they're using that trauma, that hostile environment to achieve that. And it does require isolation of the victim and sometimes the targeting of the victim's family members, which includes children, okay? Children, the targeting of children is really the stuff of nightmares because it involves torture, it involves sexual molestation and rape, it involves some of the darkest things that a person can imagine. because all of these things are necessary to fragment the core personality of the victim. But if the victim has no idea they're even targeted, that's not always necessary. Okay, so they'll use, for example, influence mapping. Influence mapping is it's a business marketing strategy, which the shadow government contractors, these hive mind teams, these cognitive researchers, these psychiatrists, psychologists, neuroscientists, behavioral scientists, etc. That's who's targeting you. Okay, that they use influence mapping. Okay, and basically it's just a protocol, a psycho-cybernetic protocol which they have developed and taken from the business academia, the business world, to incorporate into their trauma-based mind control program. Okay, so influence mapping is simply a business marketing strategy used by businesses who want to sell their product or their service to another business. In, for example, a B2B relationship. Take that, for example, okay? So some business wants to sell to another business, so they use a process called influence mapping to determine who it is in that business that has the most influence, that's the most important. Okay, they don't target the janitor, they don't target the administrative personnel, they're not that important. Those people have no influence over the daily affairs of that company. They target the important people, they target the president, CEO, the CFO, etc., in order to get them to buy their product or their service. It's called influence mapping. It's basically, the CIA and DIA hive mind teams use this process of influence mapping against your children and other family members. They map out your social circle by data mining your emails, your phone calls, etc., to determine who it is in your life that's most important to you. Okay, and then they begin to target those people with, for example, negative associative conditioning, or there are hundreds of programs. I'm just naming one, in order to turn that person against you, to manipulate and deceive that individual, to whatever it is they're trying to achieve. Okay, so negative associative conditioning, for example, would be the creation and induction of negative trauma every time you come around, every time you call, etc. Something bad happens. Their dog dies, their car breaks down, until those family members begin to correlate all of that negative, all of that traumatic event with your presence, and they begin to avoid you like the plague. Okay, it's called negative associative conditioning. They use it on your children too, to fragment families. Okay, this is a weapon system. Okay, do you understand?
Yes, got it.
So, weapon system. It's designed to turn the victim into a weapon who will self-destruct, who will either inflict destruction upon others or who will self-destruct. Remember Myron May? He inflicted destruction upon others, and then he self-destructed. He committed suicide by cop. Remember Aaron Alexis? He was a way. They turned him into a weapon. He inflicted destruction upon others, and then he self-destructed. The Las Vegas shooter, etc., etc. Okay, what is going on here? Okay, it's called negative associative conditioning. That's just one of the reasons why they target your family members. They cannot allow you to engage in a pattern of random and chaotic conversations and situations with anyone. They've got to get their stalkers. They've got to get their government informants turned into provocateurs next to you or near you as verification markers and verification triggers, so that they can say, look, okay, that person's plugged into the paradigm. And so this conversation, the situation that's happening, is not random and chaotic. So that's one of the reasons. There are many reasons, but that's three of the reasons they target your family, including your children.
Okay, I have a question, and you may have answered this, but I don't know if you were able to hear, because I know your phone kept dropping, but we had Jackie speaking earlier, and she brought up the fact that her grandson, who she helped to raise in his earlier years, he's an early teenager now, 13 or 14, how he is beginning to target her. She's sure of it. She has seen evidence. She's seen him taking pictures. She's heard him on the phone saying, I got it, things like that. So she's positive that he's involved in her targeting. And many TIs, almost all TIs that I know, have family members who are involved in their targeting. How do you think they are turned on their once loved ones? How do they get them involved? In other words, I know that weaponry may be involved to some degree, but I also believe that some of them are paid to do this. So is it done by threats and intimidation? How do they get our friends and family to turn on us?
Mostly deception and manipulation. There are, I guess, threats and other methods involved. Behavior modification, reinforcers, negative consequences, whatever it takes to strengthen or weaken a given behavior. Think about Pavlov's dogs. Remember behavior modification? The Pavlov's dogs. Well, this is behavior modification. And with a victim, with a targeted individual, it's unfortunately behavior modification to death. But they do alter the behavior of those. They want to force the victim into what are called false correlation. False correlation. Where the victim, for example, each time your neighbor comes home from work every day at 5 o'clock and drives up in the driveway, the supercomputer or the hive mind teams will modulate the stream of energy and cause you severe pain to force you into the false correlation that your neighbor is somehow attacking you. They do. I'm just using that as an example, but they do the same thing with family members and friends. Okay, so it's just think of Pavlov's dogs. Okay, think of it as behavior modification using reinforcers or negative consequences to strengthen or weaken whatever given behavior they're trying to deceive and manipulate, to turn or make the victim believe by false correlation that the victim's family members have actually turned against them, when in fact they haven't turned against them. They're victims of the technology themselves, or they're being deceived and manipulated.
Okay, because some of us know for a fact that relatives have turned, I don't think it's a figment of...
Of course. Yeah, I mean, they're going to try and determine if, if basically, they want to know how they can walk a person to their death. They want to know how they can get people to turn against each other and kill each other or hurt each other, not just physically but psychologically. Okay, and so if you want to inflict trauma on another person, go after what they love. Go after their family members, go after their friends. It's a very traumatic situation. And you think, how could these people do this? How could anyone do this? Well, you have to understand that the difference between a sociopath and a psychopath to understand how anyone could do such a thing. A sociopath, just think of hot-headed, okay? Hot-headed, okay? And a psychopath, just think of cold-blooded. And to get those two words down, you'll understand the difference between a psychopath and a sociopath. I've heard people say that these contractors that are targeting them, these cognitive researchers, are sociopaths. No, they're not. They're psychopaths. Okay? Sociopaths are hot-headed. They can't control their situation. They can't control their temper. They can't control relationships. They can't keep a job. They can't, they really feel no empathy whatsoever for anyone they don't know. Okay, that's a sociopath. And they can't fit in anywhere, basically. They just can't fit in, okay? A psychopath, on the other hand, can fit in anywhere. They can fit right in with no problem, okay? They're not hot-headed. They're cold-blooded, okay? They're cruel, deceiving, and manipulative, okay? They could kill you and then go have a beer, okay? So that's the difference between these people. These people obviously, they're getting paid to do this. So these are they're hiding in plain sight. The people that are targeting you are in each community in America, okay? And they're not in some underground base somewhere, okay? They're hiding in plain sight. They're the doctor at the local hospital, the psychiatrist and psychologist at the local mental health hospital, the behavioral therapist, psychologist at the local children's clinic, et cetera, okay? The neuroscientist at the local university. It just goes on and on. Okay, these people are hiding in plain sight, and they are not sociopaths. They are psychopaths, and they're getting paid. They're getting paid to do this, okay? The training, research, and development is the reason why it's happening, and it's called neuroreality. It's called neuroreality. It's basically the use of artificial superintelligence merged together with augmented reality or virtual reality interfaces, and they call it neuroreality. It's EEG heterodyning using virtual interfaces and augmented interfaces. Okay? You understand?
Yeah, got it. Okay, so we have a question. Yeah, I have a question coming from the chat room. Hang on, let me go over there. Does Bryan get V2K remote neural monitoring? If so, what does he use to combat it?
In order to understand, yes, I get it. I get it. You have to understand. In order to answer that question, I'd have to first explain the difference between remote neural monitoring and remote neural manipulation. Remote neural monitoring is not mind control. It's not. Remote neural monitoring is not mind control. Remote neural manipulation is mind control. Okay? There's a big difference. Okay? Remote neural monitoring is basically it's used for a lot of different things now. They use it in medicine and science, in the military. They use it with the towers and satellite-based relay devices, electro-optics. It just goes on and on. Okay? To measure, image, transmit brain and neural activity of a victim's mind. That's remote neural monitoring. So, for example, the pilot of the F-35 stealth fighter, he doesn't fly the F-35 stealth fighter. He doesn't operate that plane. The pilot doesn't fly the F-35 manually. He doesn't have to. He uses what's called a brain-to-computer interface, remote neural monitoring. He uses his brain waves, okay, to control the communication, the navigation, the weapon systems, etc., okay? It's called a brain-to-computer interface, the electronic brain-to-brain interface. Okay, basically that's the difference between remote neural monitoring and remote neural manipulation. Remote neural manipulation is very much mind control, okay? Not remote neural monitoring, okay? And remote neural manipulation is basically, all mind control falls into three categories. All of it. Everything they're doing to their victims. Every single day, no matter what they're doing, no matter what program you're in, it all falls into one of three categories. Censorship, memory management, and direct behavioral control. Okay? Censorship is just their ability, the supercomputer or the hive mind team's ability to censor your behavior, to censor your speech, to prevent you from engaging in any type of external activity which interferes with their technology, such as listening to music, reading a book, etc. Anything which entrains your brain away from the system, the supercomputer. That's called censorship, okay? They'll use drowsiness, they'll use dizziness, they'll use chaos, they'll use trauma. They'll use a lot of different tactics, a lot of different methods to achieve that. It's called censorship. The second area of mind control is memory management, and the third is direct behavioral control. It's memory management that you're talking about when you're talking about the difference between remote neural monitoring and remote neural manipulation. And remote neural manipulation is basically the difference between it now, and I'm having to go through this to explain, to answer this question. The difference between remote neural manipulation and remote neural monitoring is this. Remote neural manipulation is the ability of the supercomputer or the hive mind teams, okay, to predict and to influence your reference choices, your behavior, your speech, okay, by modification of your active memory, okay, to predict and influence that behavior or that speech as you're formulating your thoughts, as you're preparing to act, okay. It goes into attack mode with these thought-triggered attacks. The hive mind teams will use EEG heterodyning. They'll use these virtual and augmented reality interfaces to manipulate your memories, to get you to picture into some type of action or access sequence. So when I say pitch you into some type of action or access sequence, to get you to say or do something, to verify their technology is working properly. It's called verification. It's called running the victim through a verification routine. You saw it. You witnessed it happen earlier with the repeated calls, the chaos that we had over and over. Okay? That's mind control. That's remote neural manipulation. That's verification. Okay? And so, yeah, I did get both remote neural monitoring and remote neural manipulation. You can't have one without the other. You can't have remote neural manipulation, without remote neural monitoring. You can have remote neural monitoring without remote neural manipulation. Okay? but unfortunately I get both. Okay, so how do I get it? The same way you do. Okay, it's a supercomputer that's attacking you. It's an exascale, conscious system of remote neural networks. Okay, it's a very advanced and sophisticated system of computers. It's not one computer. Okay, it's a system of remote neural networks, and that system uses what's called a computer multiplexer. Okay, and a computer multiplexer basically routes the signal. Inside this stream of energy, these electromagnetic low frequency waves are targeting your brain with your cerebral cortex. It basically illumines your brain with a stream of photons, and then it reads the return training signal. So it's a bidirectional stream of energy. Okay, and it's routing that stream, that signal, that hidden carrier frequency within that stream of energy to one of three things, to one of three platforms, to a tower, to a satellite, or to what's called a mobile platform. And then the tower, satellite, or mobile platform then relays the signal to you. Okay, you have to...
Okay, your sound is going out. The sound, you got it. I can hear you as good.
Okay, so I'll say it again. A computer multiplexer, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Computer multiplexer routes that signal, okay, that bidirectional stream of energy, electromagnetic low-frequency waves specifically tuned to your brainwave signature, this hidden carrier frequency within this stream of energy, to a tower, a satellite, or a mobile platform. And once the computer multiplexer, the supercomputer, the exascale system of remote neural networks, routes that signal to one of those three platforms, tower, satellite, or mobile platform, the tower, satellite, or mobile platform then relays the signal to you, to your brain. Okay, so think about how cell phone technology works. Okay, a cell phone is a digital receiver. Okay, so this technology is nothing like cell phone technology. It's extremely advanced and sophisticated. But if you think about that, if you think about cell phone technology, it helps a person in the theater of their mind begin to understand how they're targeted. So you could be in a room full of 100 people, but only you, the victim, would absorb the energy or feel its effect. Nobody else in the room would absorb the energy, because nobody else in the room has the same specific brainwave signature that you do. That stream of energy that they're targeting your brain with, it's specifically tuned to your unique, one-of-a-kind brainwave signature. Nobody else on earth has it, okay? So if you were to take two cell phones and you were to set them on a table next to each other, okay? And then you were to take a third cell phone and you were to dial a specific number, okay? Only one of the cell phones on the table would ring, because only that cell phone possessed that specific resonance frequency for that number. The stream of microwaves passed right through both cell phones, but only one cell phone absorbed the energy and registered its effect. The other cell phone didn't, because that other cell phone did not possess the same specific resonance frequency. You see? That's how you absorb the energy and others do not. Because that stream of energy is specifically tuned to you, your brainwave signature. So it's a supercomputer that's attacking you, and even when the hive mind teams attack you, it's so complicated what they're doing. These hive mind teams, EEG heterodyning is extremely. I don't fully understand it, but they're using they're using virtual and augmented reality to attack the victim. Okay, so if you were to go to the store and buy at Best Buy or Walmart a virtual reality headset, and you were to put that virtual reality headset on, you would see a virtual environment that no one else could see if they were not plugged in to the paradigm. Well, they don't need the headset. Okay, by using the stream of energy, their brain is also tied to that supercomputer. They're able to use specific algorithms to manipulate specific areas of their brain to pull up a virtual environment, to pull up an augmented reality environment. There's no external hardware necessary. The brain does this naturally. If you were to take LSD, for example, your brain will begin to fabricate this augmented reality, this virtual reality, these dragons and other visual and verbal sequences. You begin to experience that from the LSD. It's just a natural byproduct, but the brain does this naturally, okay? So all they need to do is manipulate their own brain, their own cerebral cortex with specific algorithms, specific streams of energy to be able to pull up a virtual environment inside that virtual environment, they can see all of they can see your brain waves, they can see your blood pressure, your heart rate, etc. They can pull up an entire new environment. For example, the first screen that they'll pull up inside this virtual environment, it looks like they're reading a book. It looks like they're watching television or looking off in the distance. So what they're doing is they're pulling up screen after screen in this virtual environment, in this augmented reality environment that only they can see. Because all the stream of energy it only responds to their specific brainwave signature. You understand? So
Yeah.
your attackers could literally be sitting right next to you on the plane, or on the bus, or on the train, or they could be sitting across the table from you at the library and attacking you. And it looks like they're reading a book, but they're not. They're pulling up screen after screen inside this virtual environment, this augmented reality environment that only they can see. So the first screen they'll pull up, okay, is your brainwaves, alpha, beta, delta, theta. And then a second parallel screen will be their brainwaves, alpha, beta, delta, theta. And then they'll pull up a third drop-down screen inside that virtual environment, and it will be a combination of both your brainwaves and their brainwaves. That's the heterodyne, the mixing of brainwave signals. That's how they convey. That's how they are able to convey their emotions and their thoughts to you. That's how they're able to make you feel sensations, to mimic your normal, to manipulate, to achieve neural manipulation. You understand? So the remote neural monitoring is achieved. Yeah, the remote neural monitoring is achieved through virtual reality interfaces and augmented reality interfaces, and no additional hardware whatsoever is needed. Okay, all these Hive Mind team members, these cognitive researchers, all they do is they just disassociate. They just force themselves to hallucinate. Okay, it's called daydreaming. We call it daydreaming. Okay, and they begin to look. They begin to force these forced hallucinations. They can pull up screen after screen inside this augmented reality, this virtual reality environment that only they can see, because only their brainwave signature will pick up that signal. You see,
Right.
It's really complicated. I mean, it's really
Yeah.
it's really.
Okay, guys, we have a couple of questions. Are you open to questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
As much as I know, I'm just a victim. I'm a target individual who's done a lot of research. I'm no expert, anybody with any secret inside information. I've just done a lot of research, and I've got some of that information from scientists that were involved, and I was able to take what I got, and then I was able to take some other information, some of, for example, Dr. Robert Duncan's writings, and I was able to put it together, and I was able to see what they were doing. Basically, that's what the organized stalking and the gaslighting, etc., that's what it's all about. So it's about constantly provoking you into synaptic responses, which the supercomputer can measure, remotely measure and download back into RNN data, as it creates a cognitive model of your brain.
That's one of my questions. That's one of my questions. Why? And I do have somebody unmuted, so you can make my question short. But you just mentioned,
yeah. Well,
hold on, Brian, I want to ask you a question. You said, how the supercomputer collects data and everything. Why are they interested in our data? Is it just simply to target us? Is it for research? Like, why?
Okay, I'll answer that question. First, let me just say this. Please keep anyone's questions down to a 3 to 5 minute narrative. I don't want them to draw out long responses, because their questions become discombobulated, and I can't understand what they're saying. Okay. So just let them keep it at about a 3 minute. If they keep talking after about 3 minutes, just butt in and say, okay, that's what's your question, okay? And then cut them off, because otherwise their questions become too discombobulated. I can't make sense of what they're saying. Okay. What was your question again?
My question is, you mentioned how the supercomputer collects data from us, and they want to get these responses from us, and I'm wondering why. What is the purpose of this whole targeting thing? What is the purpose? Is it simply to target us, or is it for research purposes, or a combination of both? What's the purpose of collecting the data?
In the Department of Defense. Okay. first of all, you have to understand who's attacking you. If you're a targeted individual and you're a victim of this technology, you have to understand who's attacking you. Okay, most of the organized stalkers, the cyber stalkers, are plugged into the paradigm already and have no idea they're even targeted. They're really beyond help. I think they're beyond hope. There is a point of no return with this technology. Once the cognitive model is completed, you have become digitally and artificially possessed, and your soul, your literal will, intellect, and emotion, your human soul is hanging over hell by a thread. Okay, now, with that said, the answer to your question, the short answer is training, research, and development in, listen carefully, artificial superintelligence technologies. Okay? They're using innocent men, women, and children. They can't use animals. For not AI. AI, that's old hat technology. Okay? This is ASI, Alpha Sierra Indigo. ASI, it's artificial superintelligence. Not artificial intelligence, okay? That's what you have to understand right away, okay? So training, research, and development in artificial superintelligence. Okay, now, why? Because, you know, in a world where everything's controlled now by artificial superintelligence, from transit to communications to medicine to science to military strategy, et cetera, everything's controlled by artificial superintelligence. Okay, in a world where you have more than one superpower, the superpower with the slightly weaker artificial superintelligence (ASI) loses every battle. They lose every conflict. Okay, so China has slightly weaker ASI than America. They lose every battle, whether it be in the skies or on the seas or in the cyber arena, whatever it may be. Okay, it doesn't matter, virtual or tangible. They lose every single conflict because they have the slightly weaker ASI. So the answer to your question is the continued refinement of existing technologies. They must keep increasing their training, research, and development to continually refine the ASI, to make it better and better, to keep ahead of the Chinese and the Russians. Okay? So they have to use a bigger pool of people to do that. And it involves the torture and assassination of innocent men, women, and children. Okay? It involves that. Okay? There's no way around it. Okay? And there are hundreds of different programs. There's trauma-based mind control. There's beta programming. There's omega programming. There's just so many different programs. A victim will never go just through one program. Okay, they'll put you through multiple programs because they're using you for training, research, and development in artificial superintelligence for one reason primarily: the continued refinement of existing technologies. They got to stay ahead of the Chinese and the Russians. The Europeans, the Americans, the Five Eyes, they're all in on it, okay? But on the other side of the spectrum, you have Russia and China who's also doing it, okay? And the country with the slightly weaker ASI loses every battle. Do you understand?
Yeah. Got it. Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, I got it.
Okay. For about 3 minutes, or else I'll understand what you're saying, okay?
Okay, I unmuted. Who did I thought I unmuted somebody. If you're unmuted, go ahead and speak. Okay, I guess I didn't. Okay, hold on. Hello, did you have a question or comment for Brian?
Hi, Renata. It's Lauren. How are you?
Good, Lauren. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Quickly for Brian, he just mentioned something, superpower, research and development. Question, it just came out on mainstream media on the 15th, Brian, of September in China. A young man, he didn't come out and say voice to skull, but they did coin electronic harassment on their mainstream media, and their reasons that people are targeted is because of dissent, because they're under a communist regime. Do you feel by them coming out with this, is that a sort of a competition with the other countries?
Renata, you're going to have to translate the breaking up on the people who are being unmuted. They're breaking up. You're going to have to translate. Let them direct the question to you, and then you translate.
Okay, so I didn't okay. All right. So he wants me to translate it. So say it again, Lauren, because I didn't catch it all.
Okay. Renata. Direct the question to Renata, and she'll direct it to me. You're breaking up.
Sure. Recently in the news on YouTube, in China, mainstream media has outed electronic harassment. Is this the type of race for this super artificial intelligence? Is it to end it, or to let America know, hey, we're done with it, we're outing it, or what does this all mean? Because it's totally, they did not type V2K, but they did express voices in what they do. And his reasons, he believes, is because of dissidence. He filed a complaint on law enforcement corruption.
Okay, so let me see if I can.
So I guess my quick question is: are they getting ready to out this to end this? Maybe keep it there.
Okay, so basically, Lauren wants to know: are they getting ready to out the targeting so that it can come to an end?
No, it will never end until time itself ends. Listen, they can't stop the training, research, and development. Okay, it's not going to end. It's just going to get worse. More and more people are going to die. There are millions of victims alone in the United States of America. Think about Europe. Okay, there are over 324 million people in America. There are tens of millions of people targeted in America alone. Anyone on social media is targeted, whether they're in America, Europe, or wherever. The supercomputers, the X-scale system of remote neural networks, is global. It's nationwide. It's a global weapon system. Okay, it's downloading and correlating all of that information for training, research, and development. They're not going to stop. Now, Magnus Olsson is a good friend of mine. I met him in Sweden. I met him in Poland. We talked. I can tell you that he's very excited. He thinks that this United Nations investigation is going to make a difference. I tell you, it will make no difference whatsoever. Okay, no difference. So they're not going to stop this. It's only going to get worse. More and more people are going to die. Okay, millions in America alone will die from this technology. Just the technology alone. Because you're dealing with streams of electromagnetic energy, okay? And the human body is not designed to deal with that. Okay? And the greater the modulation of the stream that people are being targeted with, the amplitude, I can't remember the correct terminology for the stream of energy. This bidirectional stream of energy people are being targeted with, the phase, the frequency, and amplitude of that stream that millions are being targeted with. That's going to cause a premature death. Okay? So the nanotechnology that's being sprayed into the hydrosphere, that's filtering down into the water supply, it's not just America, it's global. Okay? This nanotechnology, once inside the body, once it filters down from the hydrosphere into the water supply and the food chain, and once it's consumed, and it migrates through the bloodstream to the brain and adheres to, listen carefully, the nanotech adheres to the neurotransmitters of each person's brain. So everybody's infected. They've been spraying this into the hydrosphere for decades. All 950 million Europeans are infected. All 324 million Americans are infected. Okay? That's going to bring about a premature death for everybody. Okay? Most people. So this is going to get much worse. It's not going to get better. It's not going to end. And there's no country, not even the Chinese and the Russians, that have any vested interest in so-called outing this, exposing it, because they're doing the same thing to their citizens. They're doing the same thing to other foreign nationals. You can't just target people in your own country, of your own language, and your own culture. You have to have a significant pool of research subjects from each language, each society, each culture, each background, each intellect, each ethnicity, in order to have the proper scope and scale of research, training, research, and development, you have to have a large enough pool of research subjects. It's going to get, in other words, it's going to get bigger and bigger. It's not going to end.
I think so too. Thank you, Lauren. I think it's going to get. I think we're going to have many more TIs than we have now. I really do. Thank you for your question, Lauren. Star 2. Someone else had their hand raised. Star 2. If you'd like to speak, I think I might have done something. Star 2. If you have a question for Bryan or you would like to speak. Hello.
Hello, Renata. This is Faye, and I had a quick question since Bryan was on there.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay. Since the election is coming up, I have noticed for a few years that they seem to use the same technology that is used, which Bryan was talking about today, for family feuds and different feuds and how they get groups of people and organizations to break apart or hate each other. I just wanted to know if he confirms that technology is definitely being used regarding Trump and how the media hates him and how they're manipulating the public. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Faye. Did you hear that, Bryan? Bryan still there? Hello? Uh-oh. Oh, am I having a move?
Hello?
Hello? Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. I didn't hear it. No, I didn't hear what she said. Go ahead and translate. Go ahead and tell me.
Okay, so that was Faye, and Faye said that she noticed, especially during this election time, that they seem to be using the same technology that you talked about, how they start family feuds and everything with the technology. And she said she's wondering if you believe or can confirm whether or not you believe that they use this technology on the Trump administration and that maybe that's why he's so hating. I think that's what she said. I hope I said that right, Faye.
Well, they're using mass media programming, religious programming, and other methods, the internet, etc. They're basically, the technology is designed to fabricate and to falsify. Okay, to fabricate and to falsify, not just information. They've weaponized information systems, obviously. Okay, they've weaponized terminology like conspiracy theorists, etc. I love that word narcissist. If you ever see that word narcissist, they're trying to create new trigger words. So you'll see the word narcissist constantly be used. And what they're doing is they're weaponizing not just the information systems themselves, but they're weaponizing the technology is designed to fabricate and to falsify not just information, but memory, okay, thoughts, emotions, okay, because that's what emotions are. They're artificial brainwaves. So the supercomputer that's targeting the victims is designed to remotely capture random bits of the mass, whoever's being targeted, and millions of people are being targeted, okay. So the supercomputers, the system of remote neural networks, okay, is designed to remotely capture random bits of the victim's senses, thoughts, emotions, etc., brainwaves. And then once it remotely captures that, to manufacture, to fabricate, to falsify, these are called thought-triggered attacks. It does it at the speed of light. Energy travels at the speed of light. So it basically, it provides mental suggestions. It basically, they want to modify the active memory of the victim, the emotional, all 7 vectors of the victim's emotional state. Okay, so they use the information systems to achieve that. That's part of it. But the system itself is basically using mental suggestions against the victim. It's basically smart city technology. These are automated, active, and adaptive remote neural networks. In fact, I call them exascale supercomputers. We really don't know what to call them. We just call them exascale, artificial superintelligence, because we don't really understand the infrastructure, okay? But they're all coordinating, they're analyzing, they're predicting, they're enabling, they're directing the paradigm against not just victims who are actively targeted, but against the American public at large in real time, okay, in order to be able to utilize that information to control people, to achieve direct behavioral control. Listen carefully, not just over a person, but over entire segments of society at a time, okay? So that's what the fusion centers are doing. They're using this information, okay? They're taking this artificial superintelligence and they're using this information they take it, they triage it, then they want to manipulate. Mind control has been around. If you think about it, if you just think for 1 second, mind control technologies have been around for thousands of years. I mean, organized religion is one of the most effective methods of mind control ever invented by man. Education is another form of mind control. Okay, this gets really deep because it's not just about the political system. Okay, it's about the manipulation and control over entire segments of society at a time. And education and religious programming and the weaponization of information systems is all a big part of that. To allow remember, it's all automated, active, and adaptive. It's all supercomputers, okay? To allow them to control people, to allow them to control segments of society. That's what the Mandela effect is all about. To allow them to control entire segments of society at a time. So it's not just fake news, okay? It's weaponized news, okay? So I don't know. I'm not hearing too well what your people are saying, Renata. But I guess did I answer her question? They're modifying the active memory of their system. Yes. Okay. So that's the mind control technologies of the CIA and the Department of Defense are designed to modify the active memory. And when you're talking about memory, you're talking about a pretty big area. You've got, well, let's just make it real simple. You've got sensory memory, you've got short-term memory, you've got long-term memory. Now it gets more complicated than that, okay? But just in simple terminology, okay? They're targeting not just the long-term memory of their victims. They're targeting the active memory of their victims in real time to manipulate the way people think, the way people behave, their emotional state. That's why trauma is necessary. Physical and psychological trauma is necessary to map out all 7 vectors of a person's emotional state. Okay, so it's about deception and manipulation, and it's using streams of energy to achieve that by modification of memory. Okay, so in order to do that, they've used this automated, active, and adaptive system of exascale supercomputers, using the weaponization of information systems, mass media programming, religious programming, education, et cetera, and you know, this has been going on for decades. This is nothing new. It's not just about Trump. Okay, this is about controlling. If you live in America, the Americans aren't content to control just the American nation. They want to control the world. Okay, so what you see basically is Cold War 2.0 between the Russians and the Americans and the Chinese and the Americans. Again, the continued refinement of existing technology. Okay, and it all begins with their ability to modify a victim's memory and emotional state using artificial brainwaves. So that system is using deception and manipulation. It can all be summed up in one sentence. Okay, what they're doing, one sentence. They are using a deadly game of deception and manipulation to achieve direct behavioral control over the American public. Okay? Deception and manipulation. I can't hear them. You don't have what they're saying.
We have another. Okay, so I hope your question was answered.
Especially with smart city technologies. I mean, smart city technologies are a big part of it. Okay? Because they have to keep, in order to achieve direct behavioral control over a person or a group of people, one must maintain surveillance of that person. One must maintain they're using I think the system it's called Triple S. It stands for Smart Surveillance Systems, but that's just a moniker. Who knows what the technology that they're using? We don't know. know the infrastructure. We have some idea of the software. We have no idea of the hardware that they have. They're 80 years ahead of the technology available on the market, and they're 500 years ahead of the technology which is not available on the market. I was just a low-level contractor with the Department of Defense. I was nobody important, okay? But you'll hear Dr. Robert Duncan, Dr. Barry Chow, and these other scientists get on these calls and these interviews, and they'll tell you that, I mean, there's no way for us to assess exactly how far advanced they are. So we can't tell, exactly what they're doing. It's just not possible to take the information that we have, triage that information, and determine in effectual real-time, real-world scenarios what they're doing each day with trying to achieve direct behavioral control over us. It begins with smart city technology, but it doesn't end there.
Okay, let me unmute this person who has a question or a comment. Hold on. Hello, do you have a question or a comment?
Yes, I do. I wanted to ask Brian, is there any real shielding from directed energy weaponry?
Directed energy, okay.
Okay, Brian, did you hear that? Real shielding.
Yeah, listen, I'm no expert on this, okay? I can tell you that from mind control, there are a million different ways to shield oneself, okay? But from mind control technology, they're using electromagnetic low frequency waves. So you're talking about micrograms, okay? That's mind control. They're using extremely low frequency electromagnetic low frequency waves. Okay, so to shield oneself, there are only 4 methods to shield oneself from mind control, okay? I got a couple of perps in here right now listening to me. They hear their verification markers and verification triggers. Okay, so it's just the same with everybody involved. I'll talk about verification markers and verification triggers in just a second. But shielding, to shield oneself from this technology, mind control technology, there are only 4 methods. Okay, there's passive shielding, there's chemical shielding, there's what's called mental shielding, and then there's electronic jamming. Of those 4, and there are only 4, okay? Many different ways to shield, but from this technology, there are only 4, okay? And the only one that works effectively, that we know that works, is electronic jamming, but we can't do it. We don't have the technology, we don't have the expertise, we don't have the hardware and the software. These exascale supercomputers are programmed with hypergame theory algorithms. We don't have access to that kind of technology. In order to jam a system, in order to jam the stream of energy in real time, using these hypergame theory algorithms, one will have to have the same or similar type of technology. But we don't have that, okay? So even if we have the infrastructure, even if we had the hardware and the software, we still lack the expertise to electronically jam the signal. And even if you had all of that, they just send their goon squads and tear it up as soon as you left the house. Okay? Mm-hmm. So there are only 3 methods left to shield from this technology, and that is passive shielding, chemical shielding, and the most effective, which is mental shielding. Passive shielding is simply the use of passive materials like metal, like Teflon, etc., to try to reduce or minimize or block the stream of energy. It's almost totally ineffective. It really doesn't work that well. Some people do say they get a limited amount of relief from using passive materials, and I encourage them to do so. But for the most part, it's totally ineffective because unless you've entered into a dead zone where their technology doesn't work because of large infrastructure or whatever, all the system needs to do is just modulate the stream, and it can pierce right through that passive material. Now, that's passive shielding. Okay, the second is chemical shielding. And basically, chemical shielding is just the use of chemicals to alleviate the symptoms of the technology. Really, it doesn't shield. Okay? For example, Valium or Ativan to relieve anxiety. People who are being targeted, beta programming. Beta programming is sexual programming. Okay? They would use, for example, a Lupron, a shot of Lupron to kill. That would be a form of chemical shielding to kill their sex drive, to stop the beta program, etc., etc. It's just the use of chemicals, okay, to alleviate the symptoms of the technology. It's called chemical shielding. The third, remember, there are four, but there are only three that we have available. It's mental shielding, and for us, it's the most effective. And mental shielding is simply the ability to block the return training signal, to disrupt their technology, to break brain entrainment with the system, to prevent the system from being able to lock on to your emotional state. Okay, so for example, creating a dominant external stimulus by listening to pleasing music, or that dominant external stimulus, that pleasing Christian music. I'll get to Christian music in just a second. There's a lot of different ways to create a dominant external stimulus, reading a book, engaging in outdoor activities, etc. I'm just using music as an example. Okay, this is a form of mental shielding. And what pleasing music will do is it will break brain entrainment of the system by temporarily altering the victim's brain wave signature, creating all of this additional electromagnetic energy inside the neural pathways of the victim's brain, effectively jamming the information and injection feedback loop, this bidirectional stream of energy they're targeting your brain with. Okay, so that's called mental shielding, and simply just establishing a dominant external stimulus, whatever it is that you're using. And music is extremely effective at jamming that signal, at creating all this additional energy inside the neural pathways of your brain to jam that signal. So that's called mental shielding. So again, many different ways to shield, but from this technology, there are only four.